Let's talk about the Sentro drill attachment and some awesome things about it, and then some cautions when using it. So the one thing the drill attachment works really well for is if you have to crank out a lot of rows and you get that repetitive motion fatigue in your shoulder. That's why I ended up getting it, was because sometimes I would get that shoulder fatigue making a ton of projects. It's also fairly inexpensive, which is nice. I purchased mine on Amazon, but I've seen them also on other websites as well. So here's how it looks. Here's the attachment that it attaches to the drill like this. And then it just hooks on to your crank handle. There's a little opening for the lever. And then you want to just make sure your drill is going forward. And then you put it on your crank handle and press the button. This attachment can work with any drill, but a caution when using the drill: when I first got it, I went and got my big old drill from out of the garage. Now, there are settings on drill for high power speed and low power speed. I had it on high power speed and I was cranking rows like nobody else, and it was super awesome, except for I was cranking so fast with the high power drill that it actually melted my crank handle to my Sentro, and I welded it to it. Fortunately, we were able to get the handle back off and I didn't break my machine, but that's something that definitely could happen. So what I opted for, you can still use that bigger drill and put it on a lower setting, but during Black Friday or Cyber Monday, you can get these low power drills on Amazon or Home Depot for pretty inexpensive, and they're just not going to go as fast, and they're also lighter weight, so they're a little bit easier to hold, I think. And these work really better. I have two, they're rechargeable, and I just go back and forth charging them. So if you use your big old drill, just make sure it's on the low power setting. That would be my first recommendation. Next, when it comes to yarn and using a drill attachment, you want to make sure it's a yarn you have used before, that you know works really well in your machine, that it does not jam it up, that you don't have issues with that yarn. So if you buy a yarn that you've never used on your machine before, test it by hand cranking it before you use your drill attachment. Also remember, not all weighted yarns are created equal. Some are more thicker than others, even though they're in the similar weight class. So some number 4 weighted yarns are way too thick for the machine, and it can bind it up and break your needles. If it does that when it hand cranks, you definitely don't want to use it with the drill attachment. So always test your yarn first. Next, when you go to cast onto the machine, I still do all of this by hand. I will cast on by hand like I'm showing here. Once my cast on is done, then I even will crank out the first between 5 and 10 rows by hand, just to make sure everything's running smoothly and everything's working before I get out my drill attachment. Once I see everything's looking good, now it's time to get out the drill attachment and start cranking out rows. Now you'll notice when I'm still using my drill attachment, see my left hand, I'm using that for tension. I'm not just relying on the tension bar. I also feel that this is really key to get really nice, consistent stitches, and helps with drop stitches and just making sure the yarn runs smoothly, because also you're going to see if there's a knot or a factory knot in your yarn, and you're going to feel that before it goes up into the machine, which could also possibly jam or break the machine. So as long as the machine is running smoothly with the yarn, you should really have no issues. Where people, I think, run into issues where they say the drill attachment has broken their machine is, one, maybe they were drilling too fast like I did, and it welded it and then it busted up the handle when they were trying to get it off. Or the yarn was maybe too thick, too bulky, or the yarn had something where it stuck together, so it got stuck on those needles and broke their needles. Now, there are replacement parts. There's replacement crank handles. There's replacement needles. They have a whole bunch of replacement parts for your machine, but of course, it's best not to break something. So just always test your yarn. If it's a number 4 worsted weight yarn, definitely make sure it's on the thinner side, because not all yarns are created equal, and you want to test it. If you have any other questions, please let me know in the comments, and happy crafting, everyone.